Good evening. I'm William Brangham. Jeff Bennett and Amna Nawaz are away. On the news hour tonight, people begin returning to southern Lebanon as the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah appears to be holding. We speak with the U.S. envoy who helped open the deal. President-elect Donald Trump chooses a skeptic of COVID lockdowns to lead the National Institutes of Health, a further sign of major shifts in governmental agencies. And Russia's invasion. Resorts to harsh winds force draft dodgers into combat.
Major funding for the ATS news hour has been provided by
In 1995, two friends set out to make wireless clever and accessible to all. With no long-term contracts and nationwide coverage, 100% US-based customer support. Consumer subsidies and calls.
A successful business owner sells his company and restores his father's historic jazz club with his son. A Raymond James financial advisor gets to know you, your passions, and the way you bring people together with life well planned.
working to advance inclusive democracies. Learn more at Kennedy.org. The Judy and Peter Bloom Vogler Foundation, upholding freedom by strengthening democracies at home and abroad.
I have no other place to stand, so I'm forced to do this. We say that as long as we are safe, everything will be safe.
Inside Lebanon, Israeli commanders plan to withdraw, also claiming a form of victory, having killed most of Hezbollah's leadership and removed Hezbollah's weapons as recently as last night from near the border. But for the more than 60,000 Israelis who fled their homes last October, some have nothing to return to, and they feel skeptical the ceasefire will hold.
We are afraid that Hezbollah will start again to build forces.
The agreement calls for Israel's withdrawal and the Lebanese armed forces' deployment to conclude within 60 days, alongside Hezbollah moving its fighters north of the Litani River, which on average is about 17 miles north of the border. To discuss the ceasefire, I'm joined by Amos Hochstein, President Biden's special envoy who led the negotiations. Amos Hochstein, thanks very much. Welcome to the News Hour. It's been about a day since you announced this ceasefire. Is it holding so far?
So far it is holding. A couple of little things here and there, but we expect this on day one. And I think most importantly, at about 9 p.m. our time last night, 4 a.m. local time,
chair be a U.S. military chair?
The chair will be both will be co-chaired by a U.S. military and a U.S. civilian foreign policy or national security official on that committee that will look at the monitoring and ensure that any violations are reported immediately and not by us, but by others.
As you know, President Lebanon appears in fact chairing that primarily designed to call out Hezbollah wanted the United States to not only wanted but insisted that the U.S. be on the committee and chair it because I think they know that one that we can work closely with the United States has been the largest supporter and trainer of the Lebanese Armed Forces. So I think there's a lot of trust in the U.S., both in the Lebanese Army as well as in the Israeli Army. Beyond the ceasefire agreement, there is a letter of assurance to Israel. In effect, have you given Israel wide discretion and latitude to act inside of it?
Look, the agreement itself that has now become a public document, it says specifically that both Lebanon and Israel self-defense as in addition, the President of the United States both governments saying himself that if there are violations of the several months after that, we'll do additional recruits and training of more troops to be able to go down south and get from 5,000 to 7,000 to 8,000, etc. Probably will take over a year, maybe 2 years to get to 10,000.
Beyond that question of capability, though, I want to go beyond that and ask about political will, political maneuverability for the Lebanese armed forces. Given Hezbollah's political strength, given the sectarian nature of the army, will the LAF really be able to take on Hezbollah?
You talked about earlier that the big difference is the mechanism. I would say there's one other difference. The end of the war in 2006, Hezbollah argued the confrontation. That's not Hezbollah is a significant part of its capacity, its military capacity, its political capacity. The leadership has been vested in its 30-something year leader in Israel. The successful so the
vital role, as Trump has signaled he wants to bring a swift end to the war. Two closely watched congressional races were called today, leaving just one still undecided. In California, Democrat Garrett and Republican in the state's 5th district, the seat of Orange County. In Iowa, Republicans Mary Beth won the election in the state's first congressional district. They showed off their holiday fare ahead of tomorrow's feast.
We're thankful for Zero Gravity. It's fantastic. Of course, in a personal sense, our family, our friends, those that are lifting up prayers for us and have been, we're grateful for that. We're grateful for a nation that is a spacefaring nation that lets us live free, say what we think is important to say, and so many other things.
Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams have been on the International Space Station since June, months longer than expected, because of signals after Boeing's Starlink capsule. Their families will certainly be thankful for their safe return, which is expected in February of next year. Still to come on the NewsHour, how Donald Trump's re-election fits into a broader acceptance of authoritarian leadership. Judy Woodruff explores how technology can help bridge our divisions this Thanksgiving. And the exhibit highlights the intersection of art and pain.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein studio at WETA Washington.
history of doing clinical research, or maybe they've spent a long time working in laboratories doing laboratory research. Dr. Bonataria is an economist, and he is trained as a medical doctor, but he is an economist and works more on policy. So that's one area that's controversial. And then, of course, the second area is the preference, which he was a critic. He was one who really questioned issues, and for that, I think he was sort of worried whether his approach to this job would be driven by dogma versus ethics.
I mean, I went back and reread the Great Barrington Declaration, and in hindsight, there is a part of it that does have some grains of truth, and that was the low risk that was posed to the principle, and the larger risk of
Yeah, I mean, there is something that I obviously it's also true that to favor conspiracy theories over actual evidence.
Jennifer Nuzzo at Brown University School of Public Health, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Today, U.S. officials said Ukraine should consider dropping the age of eligibility for military conscription to 25 using stark technology that Ukraine simply doesn't have. Despite this, Russian war on Japanese Ukraine's dilemma faces harsh restrictions.
Diplomacy is so cruel. This happened territorial recruitment officers who approach me and ask to see my documents. If they're not in order, I can be summoned. If I refuse to be summoned, the only person who legally is supposed to be able to detain me is a policeman. But in reality, territorial recruitment officers have been bundling men into the back of vehicles and sending them off to training centres and then on to the front. Scores of videos of men being dragged off the street have emerged on social media. And there are many more who have been deceived in other ways. Mikhailo, speaking to me independently of the military chain of command at his new base in Donbass, was tricked into driving straight to a training when he voluntarily updated his details at a medical commission.
Before they took me to car, they was very smiled me and said, okay, don't worry, it's just 2 hours more. And when I sit together, it's like, I was like, yeah, I was confused and angry and lost all this. Because they even didn't give me time to go home to kiss my wife to smoke baby.
Compounding this anger, has been a This woman, enabling them to skip military service. The Ukrainian government declined our request for comment on the allegation. President Zelensky has condemned the scandal.
I expect swift and decisive action from law enforcement.
Many like Mikhailo are incensed at the system's injustice.
I think that a lot of people don't want to go to army now because they see how corrupted is our government.
Despite this, the mobilization drive is still attracting recruits, like Hussein Dar, here trained to be a drone pilot and is exclusively a cargo.
Basically, we have two ships. Either we don't fight and we all die one way or another. They will kill us, rape us, join the military and fight. And then we have a chance for you, then the choice is obvious.
But there aren't enough young men and women now making this choice. At the beginning of the war, hundreds of thousands volunteered. Now the majority are drafted, some against their will. On the front line, the lack of clean boots is sorely felt. We visited an artillery unit near to Chelsea Yard. To us, there was no support needed. Ammunition shortages are a major problem in the face of Russia's advance. But troop shortages are just as critical, in particular an acute lack of food.
Can you feel any difference from recruitment?
No, we don't know where the movers or what's people are. Almost nothing has changed for us. They don't add people to help them, but they may even take something instead.
Many of those on the front are close to exhaustion. Some haven't had a break since they first signed up when Russia invaded in 2022. Andrew dutifully told us that morale was high, but his face seemed to tell a different story.
Genuinely, we feel that fatigue from this war, but we know if we give up, then the situation will be far worse than it is now. But yes, we're tired. We're all so fed with this war.
And so Kyiv's glossy recruitment campaigns continue, as the country seeks desperately to persuade young men and women to replace the thousands who have been killed and injured, fending off a far bigger invading force. From PBS NewsHour, I'm Jack Houston in Ukraine.
President-elect Donald Trump ran a lot of his campaign promising retribution for his enemies and asking absolute loyalty from his supporters. Now, as he prepares for his second term in office, Laura Barone-Lopez has a look at what that might mean for the future of U.S. democracy.
William, according to the Associated Press, 55% of voters said they were very or somewhat concerned that Trump would steer the U.S. to become an authoritarian country, one where a single leader or small government can take power. Still, more than 1 in 10 of those voters supported the measures. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Jason Stanley, professor of philosophy at Yale University and author of Erasing History: How Fascists Rewrite the Past to Control the Future. Professor Stanley, thank you so much for joining. Why did voters on one hand acknowledge and express fear that the country could very well tip towards authoritarianism under Trump, but then on the other hand, still vote? Professor Jason Stanley, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Just a few weeks after a divisive presidential election, millions of Americans are about to sit down with their families for Thanksgiving dinner. For those of you concerned with potentially difficult, even clashing conversations across the table, Judy Woodruff talks with social psychologist about communication. It's part of her ongoing series, America at a Crossroads.
Keith Payne grew up in a small town in rural Kentucky, almost entirely white resident. His family wasn't outwardly political, but they leaned conservative, like most of their neighbors. His own political beliefs began to shift, and he went away to college. That made his trips home all the more difficult.
I couldn't stop getting into political arguments with my family members. I come from a big family with a lot of diverse political views. On the one hand, I found these conversations and arguments so infuriating, and on the other hand, I knew that they were good, decent people who I loved, who I was having these intense arguments with.
Payne is now a social psychologist at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He's the author of a new book, Good, Reasonable People, Psychology Behind American which attempts to explain why Americans feel so split over politics, and why that can feel so personal.
We get a lot of our self-esteem and self-worth from the groups that we belong to, whether it's opposing groups like Democrats and Republicans, whether it's racial and ethnic groups, whether it's religious groups, community groups, but those groups can really hurt us. And so much of what we do is based on reassuring ourselves
So you're saying we feel psychologically
showing that there's a home. There is a home for that in America.
Cutting off friendships, relationships that you've had?
Yeah.
So in the wake of a bitterly fought presidential election, while some Americans try to set politics aside, others say political choices are fundamental to their definition of who can be a friend. Very much a house divided as we head into the holiday season and beyond. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Judy Woodward in Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Vermont.
Experiencing art is a highly subjective experience. What draws one person to a given work may completely turn off someone else. There's a new exhibit called